Wake up with the movie, see the projections on the screen. David Hoffmeister guides us to places we've never been. Over 300 tales, Hollywood's modern parables. Laugh and learn, relax and see the picture in light so full. Enlightenment through the real, find forgiveness in every scene. With the guide in your hand, let your spirit be redeemed. Wake up with the movies, let the wisdom set you free. In the light of truth we journey, with David's vision leading me. Oh, wake up with the movies, see the world anew. David's guide is waiting, with wisdom just for you. Take the leap into the light, let the movie show the way. Wake up with the movies, find forgiveness today.
Miracles are involuntary. When you start to merge your mind with the Holy Spirit's purpose, you don't have to think of what you're going to do. The Spirit will do it through you. Without your effort, you will be carried like a twig going down the river. You see? So now we're starting to realize the Spirit has a plan for us. And that's just to get into so much joy, so much happiness, so much purpose that you start to forget about the body. You still may seem to be moving, but when you watch a ballet, you think the ballerina's thinking of every single thing that they have to do. No, they're just in the flow, spinning, twirling, flipping around because the Spirit is doing it through them.
When he's talking about all these strange coincidences, and already we've seen in this movie all these people meeting, the way bands are formed, they meet each other, the way they form, California, Southern California, people are coming out there, and it's like they're following an inner tuition or an inner vibration, and none of the people that are meeting each other are there by chance. There are no chance encounters. There are no coincidences. There are no accidents. It's all based on what the mind wants. So when you want to wake up and you get a book as powerful as A Course in Miracles, it's saying the only purpose of the course is to put you in touch with your internal teacher. And at that point, you can let the book go. Because why? Because the internal teacher will take it from there. Will take it from there.
It's all he wanted. It's who we are.
Okay, hi everyone. Hi. Oh wow. Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for joining us. Yeah, it's such a gift to be together. Always coming together. Yeah, actually it's been a huge couple of weeks of coming together in my mind. Uh, of course, like we're always like trying to open up to the whole sonship in our mind, and we want to extend the miracles. And this week and last week, I just feel like I've had so many opportunities just for that, and it feels so vibrant. And even many of the ones here I see on Zoom right now. I mean, I've seen you sharing on Facebook and Instagram too. I've seen Trent posting, and yeah, I've seen lots of videos from everyone. I know Amanda always posts a lot, and it's such a beautiful way to just want to be, to extend. Like, yeah, that's really what I've been finding this week is like, and what a key kind of message is, even with this movie today, is this feeling of like we don't even know the miracles that we have until we give them away. And for that, we just need to be so willing to to see what the Spirit's plan is for us. It does just require that willingness. And yeah, I've had a beautiful couple of weeks. I've been kind of connecting a lot with people who are coming for devotional stays. And, I used to just do that for the house I was in here, but now it's kind of opening up more for the whole, community and the different centers. And so I've been connecting a lot more with different people. And it's such a gift for me too. It's kind of, it's such an interesting thing too, because when we're praying into this time, like if we're going to have an event together or people coming for devotional stay, there's always just so much prayer. And we get applications that come in and we like, look at the details and people send videos and we get like a great feeling for whoever it is and we can feel a spark or something. And sometimes it's kind of like, okay, is that one going to fit here during this event or how's that going to be? And it's kind of funny, like the Spirit always is directing us towards connection. And so many times it's like we can't just even pray into things just from a form or a submission somebody sends, but it really is like through the connection. And so this week, I mean, I've hopped on a couple phone calls and they surprised me each time. Like even what was coming out of me and a feeling of connection, even if it like I had another thought, maybe the thought was completely different before the phone call of what the stay was going to be or where that person might go. And then I'm on the phone call and I feel like just so connected with that person and things start coming out of my mouth and I start lighting up and tears start coming out and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And and it's another thing I've really been hearing this week is that the connection leads the way. It really is the relationship that leads the way. And that's what I felt like for all these years, being with the community and also traveling to different places and whatever it is. It's it really is some sense of like this feeling of connection that has pulled me through, that has allowed things to come out of my mouth. And it's kind of like there's been a spark in my heart to say yes, but I've had no idea how that's going to be answered except walking towards where there seems to be an invitation. And yeah, so it just feels like there's been so much communication in the past couple of weeks and connection. And we have a few centers here, like houses in Mexico and different friends here. And then in the past 2 weeks, there was a feeling of like, let's all come together. And so we all kind of like we actually had a big day in the garden together a week or so ago, and we invited people like friends around who live locally, and we all just to be in a vibrancy together. Some of them we hadn't seen for a while. And then we had some feeling of like, yeah, I mean, we can come together and just talk, but that's okay. But then there was just some feeling of it's so fun to be in this shared movement together, like in this flow where you feel like we're all working towards the same thing. And symbolically, it was like the garden this time. So we had, people kind of like planting new flowers and digging up weeds together and doing everything. Like the whole garden totally transformed outside. And we were all amazed afterwards too. We went, wow, we did all that in just one day. But it just seemed to be symbolic of the mind. Like, look how the miracles can just flourish so quickly with just that willingness to come together. And everyone was just so, selfless, like putting the little self aside and just wanting, yeah, let's just go for the greater good. Let's just move together as one. And it was totally remarkable. And so yeah, I've really been feeling this thing of like it's so beautiful just to go towards that spark. And also just seeing where there's like a tendency to be in our comfort zones. and to try to stick to our comfort zones. And sometimes it can also be really unconscious. Um, Especially, like, I mean, we get into different, roles, sometimes work roles. Sometimes it's like, counseling or support, or there's different things we feel drawn to do, and we offer these things. And also there can be things that will work for a while, and then you can start to feel when things start to lose a vibrancy too. And it was a beautiful thing as well, because I was talking on the live video with Helena yesterday, and we were talking about surfing the miracle wave. And I loved the analogy that, David had presented before. I don't know if it was David who initially presented it, but like you're on top of a wave and you're riding that wave and it feels really good and you're in the momentum. And you could also like when the wave is starting to die down, you could go like, well, that was a good surf. Maybe I just kind of crash into the water now and just, hang out or rest or whatever it is. And then you can get tumbled around seemingly if you just if you just drop. And it's symbolically, it's like there's an opportunity to go from wave to wave. And that's what we kind of want to do with the spirit. It's like we want to go from the top of one wave and then we want to go onto the next wave and like, and then we just keep that momentum and we keep that joy. And that's what it is with the spirit. Like it just requires, you know, sometimes to pull out of old patterns that we don't even know are there and pull out of old roles and this really small self-concept. The spirit needs to work with us to build trust and to build a momentum. And so when we start to get into that momentum with the spirit and the momentum of miracles, it just starts to feel more joyful and joyful. And we're like, wow, this is great. This is great. And and anything like seems possible. You're like, wow, I have no limits now. And what seemed like a big gap before, like maybe it was like traveling somewhere or kind of like joining a course group or something where there was a shyness before, suddenly with the miracles, burst of miracles, it's like almost like a courage in miracles or a faith in miracles that seems to kind of like develop. And you feel more like it's that reality starts to be more real and more attractive than the small self was before. The small self had comfort. It was okay, not great. It was okay. And like maybe going day to day, things weren't too shocking, or maybe, there wasn't too much coming up, but there's just like a feeling of like, meh. But the spirit has so much like so much more in store for us. There's a vibrancy that's waiting there. And yeah, that's why I love that surfing analogy, because there can be that temptation just to like go like, well, that wave was pretty amazing, but maybe I just need to drop now. And seemingly, if you drop, you might go into the trough and you might get, turned around a bit, and then you're underwater and you can't see which way is up. So symbolically, like just to be able to keep in that high and keep in that flow is like really beautiful to be able to do that. And of course, there are times where we kind of, crash and tumble about, and that's always going to happen, and that's fine. But then it's just like going towards that next opportunity where we can feel the spark and we can feel something calling us. Yeah, so that's kind of like what I was feeling today and what's been happening in the past couple weeks here. I was staying at one property. They said, "Hey, Peter, why don't you come over for maybe 1 week?" And I was like, "Really? I think things are going pretty good where I am right now. Are you sure?" And I was staying with a couple other friends, and they're like, "Yeah," they were invited too, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not really so sure about this if we want to go." And things seem to be flowing pretty smooth. Why would we do that? But then, we could also kind of get in touch with where there was any kind of discomfort with like hopping into something completely new for 1 week. Things that had been running smoothly, now we were like hopping into the unknown. Why would we do that? But there was like some invitation for something that felt expansive, like a feeling of connection. And yeah, so we went ahead, but it's been just so remarkable. And everyone who came over here for the week has one thing we always found too is like now that we're all so close to each other, if we have any thought of connecting, it's like we could just run over to the person's bedroom and knock on the door and jump in there and start, just start connecting. And that felt so great. So that was so vibrant. But then I think we all kind of moved through something this week, it feels like, where now there's a feeling of importance. And I have this, it kind of feels like salvation is like the message that's kind of coming to my mind. And even when I've been connecting with these ones on like devotional stay calls, it's like they've all reached a part in their life where they feel so ready and so willing to take a leap. And I was talking with Helena too about like taking the good risk. It was something we were talking about yesterday. Sometimes it can feel like a little bit risky, and there's like what would flow, we know has flowed well before, but then there's something, but what about this? And it's like starting to feel that with the spirit is like it might feel like there's a risk in moving towards a new direction, but there can be a little bit of an excitement too, like, but what if, you know? Or like, why not? Like it might be some kind of like excitement that's there. So that's what we've kind of been moving towards. But I felt such a gift too that to connect with like these brothers who have come towards David or come towards the community and they said, "Hey, I'm at this point in my life right now where it's like I know there's something else and the Spirit has been encouraging me to a point in my life and maybe I've started to let go of things that haven't been serving, old relationship, work things start to fall away." And then there's just a total availability. And then to be able to join with these ones and kind of say, like, yes, I feel that too. Let's join in that together. Somehow, it, to me, kind of like feels like accepting our part in the plan for salvation. It's like we come with our willingness and provide our yes, just like our brother is doing, and we meet in the yes. And it can just catapult things so far. Like for the mind, it starts to be that thing of like surfing these waves and kind of going from one high wave to the next. And we start to do that together and it builds a momentum and a courage and it lifts us up. And so I felt so grateful for these calls this week because I'd connect, I'd feel so lit up. And then I said, yes, and let's meet together. Come to the monastery. Let's spend this time together. And it's going to be so, and I feel the way that when I have these connections, I can feel certain ones that just start to, pull things out of me. And that's where I start to experience these miracles that I didn't know were there. I can see Elle's in the room too, and we spent some time at the monastery together as well. And when I was joining with Elle, she would like she would really ask me questions, or we'd connect and we'd join, and there'd be things that would be drawn out of me. I kind of like just pulled out of me, things to share, and then I'd feel like inspired to do worship services and share about these things and just extend those miracles out and out. So it can be so vibrant, and it's like, wow. Yeah, it's not that we ask for too much, it's that we ask for far too little. And in this little self-concept, maybe we've been good at something for a while. Um, like we've been playing a role and we've been doing it really well and maybe even seemingly helping people, but you can feel when it reaches a point when we start to feel like we're closing ourselves in somehow, or we just start to be more we start to feel a bit more split off, like, or more aware of the body. Okay, I know what this body does each day. It goes and it sits behind the computer here, gets the coffee in the morning, and then maybe it kind of like has a few phone calls, does this, and then goes to bed. And maybe and then repeat. And then it's like, okay, well, that maybe that served for a time with those connections, but maybe there's something else that we're feeling pulled into. And I love this kind of concept of like salvation. Like that was really the word in my mind yesterday because it takes the mind into much more of an expansive feeling than just trying to even save like one body or something, or like I'll try to do the best for this one body. It'd be great if one body experiences more peace. But this whole world is a projection of our mind. And that like salvation really is for the mind. But I love it too that it seems to be reflected in the world too when we start to say yes to this, the Spirit's plan for salvation. Salvation is forgiveness, like accepting forgiveness. But I love too how like the symbols will show up around us as well of brothers who are like popping out of like grievances they've held for ages, stepping out of like life patterns that don't serve them any longer, stepping into magnitude, stepping into like functions they never thought that they would be doing before, but that suddenly they're out there on the road and they're sharing and shining and extending. And it's like, of course we want to encourage that because that's a reflection of our own mind. If I see it in my brother, I'm seeing it for myself, I'm witnessing it for myself. So I did want to read a little bit from the lesson 186, The Salvation of the World Depends on Me, because it really gets in touch with this task we have of salvation that the Spirit has given us. So, salvation of the world depends on me. Here is the statement that will one day take all arrogance away from the mind. Here is the thought of true humility, which holds no function as your own, but that which has been given you. It offers your acceptance of a part assigned to you, without insisting on another role. It does not judge your proper role. It but acknowledges the will of God is done on earth as well as heaven. It unites all wills on earth in heaven's plan to save the world, restoring it to heaven's peace. So we can get a feeling for that. There's a feeling of this function of forgiveness for the whole world. Salvation starts. It feels expansive. You feel an expansion in the mind. So it continues. Let us not fight our function. We did not establish it. It is not our idea. The means are given us by which it will be perfectly accomplished. All that we are asked to do is to accept our part in genuine humility and not deny with deceiving arrogance that we are worthy. What is given us to do, we have the strength to do. Our minds are suited perfectly to take the part assigned to us by one who knows us well. So it's it's already all been arranged. The part has been given us by the Spirit. There's a part to perfectly play. There's no mistake in that. We're called towards something great. Like salvation is this great task given us to free the entire world, to free myself. So that kind of like leads me into talking about the movie for today after all that. So, so I had this movie in my mind this week, and it just felt so touching. And it's gonna follow these themes of like being in a comfort zone and also starting to feel like a calling. But the main character is seemingly going to be kind of resistant at first and needs some kind of help to see the value that he has. He doesn't recognize it. So the movie is actually a salmon fishing in the Yemen. And I love this movie. It's beautiful, it's funny, it's mystical, and it's all about holy relationship too. And so the main character is Dr. Alfred Jones, and he works in this kind of government department for fisheries, like for fish management. I think he also actually he's been helping the government, but he works with like yeah, like preserving the fish and he has this office kind of job. He helps with magazines that are released, and he thinks he's very like well respected. He's a respected scientist. He always is like he feels like he knows what is right for him and what is not good for him. But you can see he also works in this office job where you'll see right from the start he has kind of like this kind of resentment towards his boss, who he thinks is an idiot. And somehow he just manages all these kind of like he has grievances with others who are idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. I know what is needed. And then suddenly this offer comes in, and he'll hear that there is this Sheikh Mohammed. He's like this very kind of he's like a millionaire, this guy, and he has this idea he wants to bring salmon fishing to the Yemen. and it's like this kind of desert area where it kind of feels like, and the idea of salmon being brought to the area, he just Dr. Jones kind of finds totally ridiculous and absurd. And why are you wasting my time with this idea? This is totally ridiculous. And, and that's, he kind of like just tosses it off at first. He just goes, no, I'm not interested. Don't waste my time. But then it seems to come back again with a bit more insistence. And where the government here is like, actually, this would be a really good thing for our Anglo-Yemen relationships. And the government takes it on as like, no, this is a very important program, and basically you need to do this or you'll be fired. So, so, and you can see his feathers are really ruffled. He's like, what? And he doesn't want to go along with it. But soon into this too, we'll start to feel like there's a relationship that's going to come in. And it's the lady who kind of has been working directly with Sheikh Mohammed. Her name is Miss Harriet Chetwood Talbot, like very formal kind of names. But she she comes in with like a lightness. She has this sense of humor, although his character seems to be very kind of stuck in old ways of doing things. And in the I know mind, she comes in and she starts to kind of like say, well, actually, no, we can do this. And he'll present a problem and she'll kind of go like, that's not really a problem. We can still go ahead in this direction. And little by little, what's beautiful is like we start to watch him open up. And so he's gone like I was talking about before, he's gone from a very small self-concept of who he is, what he likes, what he dislikes, where his comfort is, and then something else starts to come in. He finds it irritating at first, but there's some kind of aliveness with it. Although it might seem ridiculous, sometimes we hear guidance from the spirit and it just feels like, well, that feels ridiculous, like it's totally different. But he starts to trust it. And step by step, we start to see him getting happier. And he's still saying what he's doing like is ridiculous. He's like, this seems absurd. Why are we going in this? He like, I don't know why we're going in this direction, but fine. If that's the way, like that's the only option that I have, the only real option, I'll go with it. But he also starts to notice too that he's getting happier and happier. And finally too, when he meets Sheikh Mohammed, who really loves fishing just like he does. And he has this property in Scotland. They're based in England, where that's where he works. But the Sheikh has this property in Scotland, and it's really regal. It's like huge, like a castle. And he's flown out there, and he starts to notice like the Sheikh is very welcoming, but he's also very heartfelt, and he feels this sense of connection straight away. And he'll even say in part of this movie, he's like, he has a bit of a leaning towards, talking towards the mystical. What he's saying is, it sounds mystical. And he was just expecting this kind of like millionaire tycoon who's just wasting money. But what he finds is someone he's actually drawn to the mysticism, even with the fishing, which is still what Dr. Jones has used and has liked, this hobby that he has. And Sheikh Mohammed has the same hobby, but he talks about it in this whole way. And he talks about even like going out and fishing like for hours on end when you don't know if you're going to catch anything for maybe hundreds of hours. That doesn't seem very logical, like a logical use of time. But there's something there that is drawing you, some kind of faith. And he starts talking about faith and introducing the idea of faith. And Dr. Jones is going to be very resistant at first to this whole idea of opening up to a faith. But what it's really touching upon too is we accept so little for ourselves. Even in terms of holiness, and like yeah, like it's really hard to like be locked into a concept of this one body, what this body does, and like feeling like, where is the holiness? I don't feel holy. And also if we're stuck in a job where we feel stuck and we're resenting our brother, we don't perceive them as holy too. The concept of holiness seems kind of foreign. but there's something about that where we need to start to expand outside this little self-concept. And there was a another section from the course that I was reading that's opening up to this idea of holiness for ourselves by releasing judgment on our brother. And you can see in this movement, he's going to be stuck in the work role and judging his boss and judging all these idiotic ideas that are coming towards him. And you can see like he's very removed from any idea of faith, any idea of something holy about himself, or any kind of like calling, like as if there is a heart calling. He's gone very much into just being very pragmatic, logistical, what's practical, but he's not answering that call of his heart. And so from the course, let's see, there's this chapter called The Power of Holiness. You may still think that holiness is impossible to understand because you cannot see how it can be extended to include everyone. And you have been told that it must include everyone to be holy. Concern yourself not with the extension of holiness, for the nature of miracles you do not understand, nor do you do them. It is their extension far beyond the limits you perceive that demonstrates you do not do them. So there's something about the miracle that takes the mind out of this personal doing. It has this natural flow. It happens without this logical kind of thinking. It's when we let go and say yes to a guidance, and things seem to, the miracle happens by itself. It seems to when we're willing. So it is their extension far beyond the limits you perceive that demonstrates you do not do them. Why should you worry how the miracle extends to all the sonship when you do not understand the miracle itself? One attribute is no more difficult to understand than is the whole. If miracles are at all, their attributes would have to be miraculous being part of them. So it's kind of getting into there, like, yeah, we don't know the way of miracles. Just like I didn't know the miracles that I'd extend when I had these phone calls with like devotional stays and something would come out of me and I'd feel totally lit up. But I wasn't planning that in advance. Actually, I didn't know what I had to offer in advance. It had to be shown to me by just saying yes to the prompt. And this next part talks also about this small self concept and working with this little idea of ourselves. There is a tendency to fragment and then to be concerned about the truth of just a little part of the whole. So we can feel this too when we get really concerned about something we're working on and we lose sight of the whole plan for salvation or that feeling, but we get really focused in on one little problem. This is but a way of avoiding, a looking away from the whole to what you think you might be better able to understand. For this is but another way in which you would still try to keep understanding to yourself. You wouldn't share, you'd keep it to yourself. A better and far more helpful way to think about miracles is this. You do not understand them, either in part or in whole, yet they have been done through you. Therefore, your understanding cannot be necessary, yet it is still impossible to accomplish what you do not understand. And so there must be something, capital S, in you that does understand. So it's moving away from like this little self idea, like the little self concept has no thought about miracles, no understanding truly what miracles are. But deeper still, the Christ does. And it's the Christ that works through us and will work through us. So in this movie, he's going to start with this, like, feeling frustrated. And then he's going to start to move into this yes. But we're going to see too, like it's him and Harriet and Sheikh Mohammed coming together, and what he thought was going to be this thing about big company, just spending millions and it feels very superficial, starts to be this very close relationship where he starts to feel this sense of faith is actually growing. And he feels like a deep trust with the sheikh as well. That starts to develop. Like he's talking about something I don't know about this mystical talk, but something feels expansive. And we're going to see too, like he's been Dr. Jones has been in this marriage that really hasn't been serving him. It kind of feels like it's a marriage of comfort. They come together, they share the same grievances they have about politics, about the world, and and then they just kind of go to bed, but they don't feel any sense of connection with each other. He's also going to start to like bring up like maybe I should just resign and maybe we could have children and I could join with the kids. That would be exciting. He's feeling something in his heart about like something more, but his wife doesn't even really listen. Like, what are you talking about? You have a mortgage to pay off. You need to keep working. And she's very dismissive about anything he's feeling, like something with this heart opening that he's starting to get in touch with. So I think that's probably a pretty good setup to begin with. It's a very funny movie, lots of really humorous parts, and you'll see too, like there's this other lady in there. What's her name? Patricia Maxwell. She's like this kind of she works for like the Prime Minister in England and organizing these big events to make the Prime Minister look good. And she's just a funny character. It's kind of like she's like the comic relief through the movie. But it's fun too. Like she feels like she's in her vibrancy all the time. Any problem, any challenge, she takes as like a, oh yeah, I can do that. We can do that. And you'll just start to feel this energy every time she comes in. She like moves things along. That it really just makes for a very funny movie. So we can just begin now, and I'll pause it a few times throughout. And if you're watching on Zoom and would like to still, come and join us, you can. We're here on Zoom. You can go to Living Miracles and join the event. So yeah, we can